I want to give you a quick second to look over this graph. And I want you to think, why would I call this graph bad? There is plenty wrong with it, so you'll probably get an answer that I'm about to talk about. But I want you to try to get this on your own. Okay, so to start off, Florida. I know Florida sucks, but you can't just make a whole graph saying Florida. That doesn't make any sense. Number of attacks over here. Number of what kind of attacks? Crocodile attacks? Shark attacks? Just general Florida man being Florida man attacks? Or all types of attacks put together? Still doesn't make much sense. Then you come down here. They put all attacks and fatalities on the same graph when they have two completely different scales. Look at how high this goes. You can't even see the number down here. I'd be hard-pressed to guess if that was 1 or 5. Same with this. It's really hard to tell. These are two pretty different scales on the same graph. This population over here, which is the most egregious sin of it all, is also on the same graph as the number of attacks. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to show, oh, as the population goes up, so do the number of attacks. But it's really poorly done. As you can see, this side is referring to the population graph. This side is referring to these bar graphs. Still doesn't make much sense because they're also doing giant leaps of time here. The population doesn't increase in that way. Like, what number did they choose to get this dot? 1965? 1970? What is that? How? It's all crazy. And over here, the scale is times 10 to the 6, while this is just in increments of 20. This is ridiculous. This graph sucks. All right, we'll go to another graph. Now, this graph doesn't look quite as bad as the last one, obviously. You see total calories in the food supply. You come down here. This data seems reasonable. Calories are going up, I guess. It doesn't really make sense when you look over here and you see the amount of calories per person. Oh, I'm about to sneeze. We're back. I'm okay. Still kicking. Unfortunately, probably for some of you. Anywho, daily per person. So this is, I guess, the total daily intake of calories per person. But then you look at this data down here. This is kind of not very good to tell what year. I guess the biggest sin is the daily per person versus total calories. The total calories in the food supply is much greater than the number of calories someone eats in a day. So someone probably made a huge mistake up here. Down here, it's still pretty poorly done to have just a line that really doesn't have any reference. You kind of have to squint really hard to get a good year out of this, a good reading. So again, bad graph. Okay, last one. I want you to take a quick look at this. While probably accurate, and it definitely was for some people, hopefully it won't be for you, doesn't mean it's a good graph, right? You can see that starting, you probably cried a lot when you have to leave your mom or your dad, and then it started getting a little bit easier. You hit biology, and you're like, this is a piece of cake. Then you hit physics, and oh my god, I'm back to baby years, back to pre-K. But while accuracy is important, we also want the data to be well represented. So if we were to look at something like this, where it's position versus time, I would want to have, let's say, increments of 5 or 2, whatever. Yeah, let's do 2, 6, 4. Ooh, this sucks. I'm going to show you the magical art of good bad graphery, because that's what I just messed up on, and that's why there's a sudden cut. So position versus time, right here, we go up to 10. Down here, we go up to, let's say, 5. We'd want to keep the scale accurate to represent the data. It's a bad graph because my drawing sucks, but it's a good graph because the data makes sense and the scale is accurate.